Our story begins with a man named Terry riding his bicycle into a small town. He seems like an ordinary traveler, but something about him catches the attention of the local police. Two officers, one named Steve, start following Terry closely. Without any warning, they push Terry off his bike. He falls to the ground, confused and hurt.
Stay on your belly!
Tell me what's going on.
Just stay on your belly!
The officers immediately arrest him, even though he has done nothing wrong. Steve looks at Terry with suspicion and asks him what he was doing there. Terry explains calmly that he was going to the courthouse because his brother Michael was in jail and he needed to bail him out. Steve sneered at him and asked whether his brother took drugs and if Terry also took drugs. Terry shook his head firmly and said that his brother didn't do drugs and neither did he. The officers search Terry's bag and find something shocking: $30,000 in cash. Their eyes light up with greed. Steve demands to know where he got all that money and what he was really doing with it. Terry tells them the truth. He explains that he sold his car to get that money.
I sold my car. I cashed out my stake in a restaurant.
That his brother needed help, and he was the only one who could save him. He needed this money to post his bail, but the officers don't believe him. They think Terry is a drug dealer who earned this money illegally. Terry even gives them his boss's name to prove he has a legitimate job, but they ignore him. The corrupt officers make a terrible decision. They confiscate all of Terry's money, all $30,000. Then they hand him a fake receipt, a worthless piece of paper. They lie to his face, telling him he could use this paper to free his brother. Terry goes straight to the courthouse, hoping the paper will help. At the counter, he meets a court clerk named Elliot. Terry explains his situation. He tells Elliot that his brother Michael was in jail, and he needed to get him out on bail. Elliot looks at his computer and responds in a cold, professional voice, informing him that the bail amount was $10,000 and he needed to pay that amount to get the release papers. Terry's heart sinks. He tells Elliot that he didn't have the money because the police took everything he had and gave him this paper instead. Elliot barely glances at the paper and coldly responds that it wasn't his problem, that it was between Terry and the police. He makes it clear that Terry needed to bring $10,000, stating that without money, there would be no bail. With that, Elliot closes up his office and prepares to leave for the day. Terry stands there, feeling helpless and angry. But then another court employee named Summer notices Terry's distress. After Elliot leaves, she approaches Terry with kind eyes. She gently asks him to tell her what happened. Terry explains everything: how the police stopped him, how they took his money, how they gave him a useless paper. Summer listens carefully, her face growing serious. She explains that this was civil asset forfeiture, that the police seized his money, and that it happened a lot in that town. She tells him he still needed $10,000 to free his brother. Terry looks confused and frustrated, asking why they would do this to him when he didn't do anything wrong. Before Summer can answer, a police officer walks by. She quickly takes Terry outside to continue their conversation in private. Summer tells him quietly that he didn't understand how things worked in that town, that he was new there, and that the system was corrupt. She advises him to get the money, bail out his brother.
You got some time. Can you get more money?
Think so.
And leave that place as fast as he could, warning him not to make trouble. She pauses, then asks him why his brother was in jail. Terry's face becomes very serious. He explains that Michael witnessed a murder, that a gang killed someone, and his brother saw everything. He testified against them, and now their boss was in prison because of Michael's testimony. Summer's eyes widen with understanding. Terry continues, explaining that in 2 days, they were transferring Michael to a different jail. The problem was that the gang leader was in that same jail. He makes it clear that if Michael got transferred there, they would kill him. That was why he needed to bail him out before the transfer happened. His life depended on it. Summer realizes how urgent this situation is. She tells him to get the money ready and promises to help him get the bail papers processed. But she warns him that they wouldn't do anything without cash. Terry agrees, but he faces an impossible problem. He has no money. The police took everything. He decides to go back to the police station to try to reason with them. At the police station, Terry meets Steve again.
False police report.
Put your signature on that.
Then the police chief walks in. His name is Thomas, and he's the most corrupt officer of them all. Thomas has already prepared false reports that make Terry look like a criminal. Everything is designed to trap Terry in the system. Terry shows Thomas the papers from his car sale and tells him to look at the proof, explaining that he sold his car legally to get that money. He pleads that his brother only needed $10,000 for bail, offering that Thomas could keep the rest if he would just give him $10,000 so he could save his brother's life. Thomas pretends to think about it. Then he smiles and tells Terry that he would help him. He instructs Terry to come back tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, promising that he would arrange for him to meet his brother there.
And we'll put this to bed.
Thank you.
Terry leaves, feeling a small bit of hope. He spends the night sleeping outdoors in the woods, waiting for morning. The next morning, Terry arrives at the police station at exactly 8 o'clock. But as he approaches, he sees a prison transport vehicle driving away. He rushes to Thomas and asks where his brother was. Thomas shrugs and tells him he was late, that his brother had already left. Terry realizes he's been tricked again. He jumps on his bicycle and chases after the transport bus. He pedals as fast as he can, finally catching up with it. Through the window, Terry sees Michael and shouts to him, telling him to listen carefully. He instructs Michael that when he got to that jail, he should immediately file for protective custody and tell them his life was in danger because those gang members knew about him. Michael nods, understanding the warning. Then the bus speeds away, and Terry is left behind on the road. Desperate, Terry calls his boss to ask for money, but his boss is angry. His boss shouts over the phone that Terry made a huge mistake telling the police about him. He explains angrily that the police contacted the authorities in his city, raided his business, and took everything. He says he had no money and couldn't even pay his workers, telling Terry not to call him again. The phone goes dead. Terry has no one left to turn to. He goes back to the courthouse and finds Summer. He tells her urgently that they transferred his brother and that his life was in danger right now. He says he needed to get him out before it was too late. Summer takes him to a private area and tells him she would be honest with him. She explains that he had no choice, that he needed money.
I wasn't playing about my job.
She tells him to give her the cash and she would give it to the judge, explaining that was how things worked there. She makes it clear that with money, she could get him the bail papers. Terry nods slowly and says he would get the money and be back. But Terry has no legal way to get money anymore. He makes a dangerous decision. He'll take back what's rightfully his. Terry returns to the police station. When Thomas sees him, he's annoyed. Thomas orders him to leave, saying his brother wasn't there. Terry stands his ground and asks him to just give him $10,000 from his own money, saying that was all he needed and that his brother was in danger. Thomas laughs coldly and tells Terry that he didn't understand how things worked. He explains that the government didn't pay them enough, that they took seized money to fund their department, and that he couldn't give him that money. He warns Terry to leave before he got in more trouble.
You do not stand in my station in front of my officers.
Thomas reaches for his gun, but Terry is faster. He's had military training, and his reflexes are lightning quick. Terry disarms Thomas in seconds. Steve rushes in to help his chief, but Terry easily overpowers him too. Within moments, Terry has control of both officers and their weapons. Terry forces them into the station. A female officer named Sammy is working inside. She sees Terry with a gun and frees it. Terry orders Sammy calmly but firmly to handcuff them. Sammy has no choice. She handcuffs both Steve and Thomas. Then Terry makes her take him to the property room, where his money is kept. Terry instructs her to take out $10,000, saying that was all he wanted, his own money. Sammy does as she's told. Terry takes only the $10,000 he needs, nothing more. Then he does something surprising. He removes all the bullets from Sammy's gun and empties his own weapons. Terry tells Sammy that he didn't want to hurt anyone, that he just needed to get out of there quietly and save his brother. He asks for her help, promising that nobody would get hurt.
You and I agree we both want to avoid gunfire.
Of course.
Sammy believes him. There's something honest in Terry's eyes. She helps him walk out of the station and even puts him in a police car. Other officers outside see them, but Sammy tells them that everything was under control and there were no problems. She drives Terry far from the station and drops him off. Terry gets back on his bicycle and rides away quickly, but Terry knows the police will come after him soon. He rides straight to the courthouse with his $10,000. Elliot takes the money and processes the bail papers. The judge signs them. Finally, Terry has the official documents to free his brother. But before he can leave with the papers, police cars surround the courthouse. Officers rush in and arrest Terry.
Don't hurt him!
They don't take him to jail, though. Instead, they bring him to Thomas. Thomas takes Terry to a hospital. There, Thomas returns all of Terry's money. He even hands Terry papers for a replacement car. Thomas tells him that he was giving him another car just like the one he sold. He says that Terry had all his money back and could start a new business, start a new life. Terry is confused. Why is Thomas suddenly being generous? Thomas continues, his voice almost gentle. He explains that the thing was, there had been a riot at the jail where they transferred his brother, that a big fight broke out. He tells Terry that his brother was caught in the middle of it and was in this hospital right now.
I do not know his current condition.
He suggests that Terry should go see him. Terry's blood runs cold. He knew this would happen. He warned Michael, but it was too late. Terry rushes into the hospital room. His brother Michael is lying on a bed, covered with a white sheet. Terry pulls back the sheet and sees the terrible truth. Michael is dead. He was stabbed multiple times in the prison riot. The gang members killed him, just as Terry feared. Terry stands there, his heart breaking. All his efforts, all his struggles, everything he did, it was all for nothing. His brother is gone. Summer is there, and she tries to comfort Terry as he prepares to leave. She shows him a file full of reports documenting all the crimes the police have committed in this town.
I can't just run you off.
Never.
She wants him to see the truth, to understand the corruption. But Terry doesn't care about reports anymore. His brother is dead. Nothing else matters.
I don't care.
He writes his phone number on a piece of paper and gives it to Summer. Then he walks away, ready to leave this terrible town forever. That night, Summer is sleeping at her home when someone breaks in. They inject her with a dangerous drug and leave. Through her window, Summer sees it was the police, Thomas and his men. The drug overdose is making her very sick. With her last bit of strength, Summer calls the only person she can trust, Terry. She whispers into the phone, begging him to help her. Terry immediately drives to her house in the car Thomas gave him. He finds Summer trying to cool down the drug effects with cold water. Summer gasps that she couldn't go to the hospital because if she did, they would make a report and use it against her. But even without going to the hospital, the corrupt system finds a way to hurt her.
You're right. You should go.
Sure you're okay?
The next day when Summer goes to work at the courthouse, the judge calls her into his office. The judge tells her that they received a drug test report with her name on it, that it showed drugs in her system, and that she was fired. Summer is devastated. The police have destroyed her career with their lies. Terry is still in town, driving the car Thomas gave him. When Steve spots the car, he approaches Terry on the street. Steve tells him that he should have left town by now and asks what he was still doing there. Terry replies that a friend needed help, but he was leaving now. Steve smiles, but it's not a friendly smile. He suddenly pulls out his gun and shoots Terry. The bullet hits Terry's shoulder, but his military training kicks in. Ignoring the pain, Terry attacks Steve and escapes to his car. He drives away as multiple officers shoot at his vehicle. Terry makes it to a doctor who treats his gunshot wound. He also calls Summer and asks her to meet him there. Terry has made a decision. He won't run away anymore. He and Summer will expose these corrupt police officers and bring them to justice. Summer explains the situation, saying that elections were coming soon, and if Thomas became sheriff, this corruption would never end. It would only get worse. She tells Terry about an important detail, explaining that every police car had a camera and all the footage was stored on memory chips. She makes it clear that those chips were evidence of everything they had done.
Was that enough to take to the press, start a ruckus?
No.
Terry asks where the chips were. Summer says that Elliot knew. They go to Elliot's house. Summer begs him for information, telling him that he knew where those evidence chips were stored and asking him to tell them. Elliot is terrified. He says that if he told them, the police would know it was him and they would kill him. He insists that he couldn't help them, but Summer keeps pushing, appealing to his conscience. Finally, Elliot gives them a hint, just enough information for Summer to figure out the location. Summer and Terry break into the storage facility where the police keep all their evidence chips. They search through boxes and files until Summer finds what they're looking for. Summer exclaims that she found them, holding up several memory chips and explaining that all the camera footage was there. One chip is especially important. It contains footage from the day Michael was arrested and transferred. It will prove what really happened. Summer tells Terry to go wait in the car because she needed to find something else. Terry goes outside and waits, but inside, 2 police officers discover Summer. They grab her and drag her to their car. Terry sees them taking Summer away. He follows their police car in his own vehicle. The officers drive to a remote location, but one policeman stays behind in his car. Terry rams his car into the police vehicle, forcing the officer out. Then Terry overpowers him easily. Using the police radio, Terry contacts the officers who have Summer. He warns them that if they hurt her, he would release all the footage on these chips to the media. He tells them the whole world would see what they had done. He says that if they wanted the chips back, they should bring Summer to Rebel Ridge tomorrow morning. There's silence on the radio. Then Steve's voice responds, agreeing to meet at Rebel Ridge the next morning at dawn, telling Terry to come alone. The next morning, Steve and several officers wait at Rebel Ridge, expecting Terry to arrive. But Terry has a different plan. Instead of going to Rebel Ridge, he drives straight to the police station. He crashes his car through the wall of the property room. Thomas hears the noise and runs inside. Terry attacks him immediately. Sammy arrives with her gun drawn, but Terry explains quickly. He tells her that he shot the chief with a tranquilizer, not a real bullet. assuring her that he was fine. He says he was giving all these evidence chips to the military police because he trusted them more than the local police. Sammy listens and watches as Terry collects the chips. But then something terrible happens. The military police officer Terry trusted points his gun at Terry. Terry realizes his mistake. This military officer is also corrupt, working with Thomas and his men. Terry is captured. The corrupt officers take him outside.
Stop there. Put down the bag.
Steve takes the evidence chips and smashes them on the ground, destroying all the proof. Steve picks up his gun, ready to execute Terry. But one honest police officer objects, saying they couldn't just murder him. Steve ignores the objection and prepares to shoot. The honest officer pulls his own gun on Steve, but Thomas shoots the honest officer in the leg from behind. In the chaos, Terry sees his chance. He grabs a bag and dives behind a police car, dragging the wounded honest officer with him. Inside the bag, Terry has smoke grenades. He releases thick smoke everywhere, creating a fog that covers the area. Using the smoke as cover, Terry moves through the scene like a ghost. His military combat training takes over. One by one, he disarms and defeats the corrupt officers. He fights Steve hand to hand, beating him severely. Then Terry runs to the police car where they imprison Summer and turns on its dashboard camera. Terry helps the wounded honest officer into the car, along with Summer, who is weak from the drugs they gave her. He drives toward the hospital as fast as possible. Thomas and the other corrupt officers chase after them. Thomas's police car gets right behind Terry's vehicle. But then Sammy makes a choice. She's seen enough corruption and evil. She deliberately crashes her car into Thomas's vehicle, knocking him off the road and giving Terry a clear escape. Sammy radios to the other officers that everything was okay now, protecting Terry. Terry reaches the hospital and rushes Summer inside. She needs immediate medical treatment for the drug overdose. While the doctors treat Summer, Terry goes back to the police car. He removes the camera's memory card, the one that recorded everything that just happened. The camera captured Thomas shooting the honest officer. It captured Steve destroying evidence. It captured everything. Terry takes this final piece of evidence and makes sure it reaches the right people. Officials who aren't corrupt, media outlets, and government investigators. The truth comes out. Thomas and his corrupt officers are arrested. The whole town learns about the corruption that has poisoned their police force for years.